Here we go again. I'm not long up, I wasn't well today, so I had a bit of an old rest, a lie about for myself. And I was thinking, if I ever got down to writing a book of all the stories that I've collected over the years, I think I'd put a blank page at the front, and I'd say, for all the historians, and a bit at the bottom, please continue. Because these stories that I collected, you won't get them in history books, and I've often find now some of these history, not them all, but there's an odd one of them, they love to pop up when maybe you've got a date wrong or something very minor, and what they do is they don't really follow your stories at all, or if they do, they just, from the armchair, and they wait for you to say something very minor, and they put up a comment putting you right about it. I just say, what do you know? Books, I remember crossing miles and miles and miles of bog night after night after night, year in, year out of my childhood and my early youth. And it was as if I was on a mission, because I was fascinated. And the peat bogs where I grew up, and man, the secrets, and very ancient secrets, things we're not meant to know. I was coming across the bog one day. I can't remember what year it was, maybe 72 or 73. No, it'd be maybe a bit later, about 74, I'd say. Because Bord na Móna had started the machines out on it, but there was a part they hadn't landscaped yet. And it just had a bare patch on it and a load of heather around it. And as I was coming across the bog, I heard this woeful roaring and shouting, like a game of football. And I couldn't see, because there was big high mounds of mill peat going up through the bog. And next thing, I climbed up one of them, and I looked over, and there I seen, about maybe, I'd say 20 to 25 full-grown men. My own father was one of them, in their 50s and 60s, playing a fierce game of football. And it was I was as good as a circus. There was, for a football, they had a round black plastic rolled up in a ball and tied up with bale and twine. And I thought, Jesus, and the roars and the shouts. And my own father, I never seen my father kicking football. And here he was, near 60 years of age, playing like a young lad. But I realised it was like they were playing somebody invisible, and it just didn't make sense. But I thought, maybe there's a sup of whiskey in the canteen or something. But I was coming down a bit later, and a couple of hours later, and I was coming up Tor Boring. I bumped into the old bogman. And this is what I loved about Tor and Westmeath. It was so magical. Especially through the eyes of a boy, or a girl for that matter. When you're young, you see things you know you're never going to see again as an adult. And this little Paddy, I used to call him, the Crib Kilmurray, was wheeling his bicycle. And he stopped and he just stared at me as if he was waiting for me to say something, because I always had something to say to him. And I said, well, Jesus, Jack, you'll never guess what I'm after seeing up Bunny Quillbog. And tell me, what are you after seeing? I said, I seen all the Bord na Móna lads, my father included, having a fierce game of football. I said, it was a lad with a flat cap blowing a whistle, he was the ref. But I said, I couldn't see who they were playing. Is that all you know? He said, that's going on this generations. He said, out in Jack Fury's field, and now they're going down to the bog. He said, they're playing their fathers, and their fathers' fathers. And that's who the fairies were. They're the dead. They're the spirits of the dead. And he said to me, they're everywhere. And he said, you may never see them, he said, but you'll see of them. And walked on just the same as if it was casual as anything. And I went home that evening and I said to my father, I said, you're some yoke, I said, to be at me about working hard and disciplining me and working me like the donkey in the field. I said, and you down in the bog working for Board Mona playing football, and nobody, who was he playing football with? Now he just, and looked away, he couldn't answer me. And that was very unusual for my father, because you could never get my father to open up. I knew he saw things as well. Anyone that grew up there saw a lot of the things I did, but it was very hard to get them to talk about it. And then he went on and he started telling me about his, he said, he started talking about his grandfather. So I says, was it your grandfather or your father? Oh, the two of them, he said. And my grandfather told me a story on the sidelines. He said, he told me that up when they were chasing the hare witch for the landlord Pilkington, he said they tried everything with the cock sticks thrown at them, and they wounded her a couple of times. He says, but then they got the devil dog. I say, what's the devil dog? He said, the devil dog, he told me, was a jet black greyhound that had perfectly black hair. There was not one white hair in his body. That was the only dog that was fit to catch and kill the hare witch. And he said he told me that they wounded her, but they never managed to kill her. I think the aristocracy, I think Pilkington had to get in some of the aristocracy and get them in, and they cut up shards of the old florin, because the old English florin was silver, and it had the cross on the front of it, and they cut it into shards, put it into a cartridge and shot her with that. That was the story anyway, and he told me that his grandfather told him that story, and then he looked away and I could never get him to speak about it again. And then he said, and he told me a funny one too. He said, his mate Patsy Kelly, he said, the two of them were living below in the bog, he says, but yet they were very clever men. He said, just misfortune had them living in the bog. He says, but what they used to do was, wouldn't they take turns and have a holiday in each other's peat hut? And that was the summer holiday, because they couldn't afford to go anywhere. And owl John the Clock said to Patsy Kelly, he said, Patsy, come. Patsy said, John, I flares in me cabin, he said, and I can't get rid of them. Well, I'll tell you what you'll do, Patsy, he said. Come over to my hut, he said, and move in with us for a month, he said, and have a holiday with us. There's plenty of room and it'll be grand. So Patsy Kelly loaded up anyway. He put chairs, tables, rugs, mats up in the horse's cart and brought them over to John the Clock's hut. And that was on a Monday. And come to Saturday, John was sitting at the fire and he goes, now, Patsy, I'm afraid, he said, you're going to have to load everything up and go back to your own hut, because you brought the flares with you for a holiday in my hut and I don't want them here. Wasn't that some story? My father told me that. That was the story his father told him below in Bunny Hill Bog that day. Thanks for listening.